Hello. Well, have not done a video in several days because I've not been sick, but I had a medical procedure, and it caused some stomach acid to kind of go up into my throat, and it burned and burned, and it kind of damaged my throat. And so this has been since Monday, I guess. And so this is the best I've been able to talk since then. I was going to do a silent video about it, and I thought, no. I mean, I could, maybe I will, but anyway. So I thought because this is like during the summertime, and so I was watching some old movies and they're not really old, but they are movies or a TV show about like the Old West. And so I thought about having some pioneer signs, and there's not really a lot per se, but let's just discuss it. So the first one is the word pioneer. So that could mean someone who has started some new idea or created something new, like they are a pioneer in their field, or the radio pioneer, first person, or they pioneered the computer or whatever. And then there's a pioneer, the people who came west. So those are the people who do something new, who don't do something different. But let's talk about some of those signs. So if it's the first one, the person who is a pioneer in their field or created something new, you would probably say person started new idea. They're a pioneer. And I've heard that a lot as an interpreter. They're going, oh, they're a pioneer in their field, right? Then maybe the first person who did heart surgery, or the first person to do, like, I was reading some kind of article about how the natives, the first time they did some brain surgery. So they were a pioneer in that area, as the first person to do something new, or new idea, or they're new, or they're doing something new in their field. That's also the sign for major. But let's talk about the Western pioneer. So that's a little bit different. And I learned, when I first became an interpreter, I worked in a school. And so a lot of signs were initialized, just to kind of help with the reading, to attach the reading word into that. And so I got into a habit of doing pioneer in one specific way. But there is more than one way of doing. There's two ways really that you'll see mostly of doing pioneer. So I have my P hand shapes or K hand shapes. It's really a K hand shape because it's, when you put it down, it's a P, and when you have it up, it's a K. But it's the same hand shape. I don't move it. So K hand shape into a P. And do the K hand shape in like the hat for the women would wear, and they would tie it, right? But I wouldn't tie it. So you could say a pioneer. And if you only want to do it halfway, because a man's hat, right, they would have a brim that would go around. Not necessarily a cowboy, but not necessarily, but it would be straight out, because it would shade their eyes and their head from the sun. So I would do pioneer. And I might still do that, like in a song or a story. I might do that. But so that's an initialized sign, and it's from the hat. So another sign for pioneer is, the pioneer is like, oh, you could say people or a person a long time ago traveling west, because pioneers normally went in a group. Now sometimes it may just be a husband and wife or their family going, hey, there's land out there in the west, or I heard there's gold, let's go, honey. And then, or we're going to start a new life. We're going to have land. We're not doing well over here in the east. We're going to start out here with the land. So you could do. So you could say, long time ago, people travel. Right? They were pioneers. And of course, the West used to be like the Midwest we call now, like, Ohio, that Ohio Valley and that Nebraska's, and then, of course, the Dakotas. And then we got into the real West of Idaho and California and those kinds of states. So you could do that. And you might even say, people a long time ago, they traveled, and you could even though you're going to your left, you're going west, you could even specify west. They're traveling west. And they traveled in a wagon. So now there's some signs for like baby sign language, and it's just pulling because it's like a red wagon or little wagon that you carry stuff. But we're talking about a wagon where you put all your supplies and you sleep back there and you have all your food and everything and your clothes, you have everything in the wagon. And you sit up front. So we're going to take our one hand shape, and we're going to do like wheels, right? Like this. And so both hands do the same action, but we need both hands because they're big wheels on a wagon. Now, we've got our big wheels, and now hopefully we have a horse, or sometimes we have a team. But we're going to take our reins, and we're going to, we're doing this with our reins, right? We're driving the horses. So, big wheel and the reins, and that would be a wagon. It could even be a carriage. A hand cart would be something that you could say a wagon, and you pull it, right? You pull it, you're grabbing hold of it, and you're pulling it. Because you stand inside of it and you pull it. You're the horse, right? So you could do that for those two different types of wagons, and even a carriage. So pioneers, and see, since I keep talking about pioneers, I still have that tendency to do the pioneers. Because the pioneers, who did they encounter? So when you say encounter, I would do face-to-face. I use that, remember, for on-site. If I'm going to be working on-site, face-to-face, or I'm going to have a class face-to-face, that's on-site with the teacher and other students. It's not online. So, so we can have they encountered what? They encountered, we can do our W's for wild animals, or you might want to specify. You could say, oh, it's a bear, or a big cat, or you could say a mountain lion. If you want to say cougar, jaguars are more in Central and South America, not in North America. So they would encounter, and of course, Native Americans. So, like I said, the old sign was Indian, which was an F hand shape, and this was like for the war paint. So that was Indian. But now Indians are going, we're not always at war. So then we do the skin. So a Native American. So they encountered Native, and then I would do people. We have our K hand shape, and we go around. I go backwards as opposed to forward. Forwards feels odd. I go backwards. People. I go toward me. It's more natural as opposed to going forward. I don't know why, but I'm sure that's how I learned it, and I know that's in a lot of the ASL books. So they encountered Native people. They encountered bad people, because there were some people that moved to the West that were not good. Maybe they were outlaws. They were criminals. They were escaping the law. Okay, that's how I would spell outlaw. You would say criminal. You would spell it, but they are escaping the law. Or you can say they did illegal things, right? And now they're running from the law. And many people did that. They would change their name. So they would do that. They were escaping justice, so to speak. So they had many challenges, or a hand shape. Challenges. What else did they in pioneer? I mean, you would have your horse, and you would have your cows and oxen. I would spell because they are a species of cow, but they are different, right? So you would say my work cows, or you could spell oxen, because they were big, big work cows, oxen, and they would have to plow the field. So I would say a field, and they would have to plow it. They're having to dig into the dirt. Some had a plow where they would hold it, and it would go to a shape where it had a sharp blade. And then they would have a horse in front, and they would, the horse would pull. They would pull it, and then you're in the back there, and it would just cut the rows. So a lot of things are classifiers. A lot of things that you would act out. But I did want to do a few things for Pioneer because watching all these Western shows. But they're fun, and so I think about it when I watch. This one I'm watching, it happened like in 1887, and it's about a true life of a person who lived a long time ago. And so, they have to have their guns. You could have your gun. You're holding it. This is a big rifle or a shotgun, right? Or a trigger. You got to cock it. You got the trigger on there, but you're holding it, right? Or you could have a pistol. Well, that's where the cowboy came from. It could also be an outlaw. So it could be a runaway, or someone who was against the law, or escaped prisoner or something like that. So, because it's harder to spell it, and when I do spell, even to deaf people who read it, but sometimes they don't know how to spell everything, just because, that's just the nature of their language in reading a foreign language. So I would spell it slowly. I wouldn't start. You're not going to impress them by signing it too fast. You want them to read it. So you would say, a criminal. I remember my teachers would say, spell it as fast as you say. Say it at the same speed that you spell it. So you don't want to say criminal, and try to keep up with that. You just go criminal. So someone who's evading the law, or they were illegal. They did something illegal, and now they're escaping. Trying to hide. Should be in, prison. So they did have their guns. Now, the native peoples, they more had, so you would hold your arrow, and you would pull it back, right? So that's how you would do that on an arrow. So think about the different words that you might use for the Old West, and see how you would sign that. Because like building a house or a cabin, we called it a cabin, but it's really a house. So you could say building a house, and they used wood. They're sawing it, right? Or you could say some of the people like in the Midwest, they would make their houses from mud. So you would say dirt. And they would use like grass, which is straw, but use grass. So kind of think about how people would sign, the words that they would use, and how you would sign that. So practice, and I will see you later. Bye.